All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of You Crack Me Up. You guys are really going to love this episode. In it, we dive into is colic actually migraine in babies, which is just something new that we are just starting to learn about, and something that I never even thought of. Again, is the migraine doc, but we're looking at, hey, is this actually a thing? Then we talk about all things development for your child, talking about their emotions, literally their little personalities coming through, and then even things that you can do as a parent, because trust me, for Alex and I, we're both still trying to figure this thing out and learn. And so we want to share with you our own personal experiences. And Alex had a really cool story about a kid that came in. He's about 4 years old and was struggling with some constipation. And that is actually at the very end of the episode. So make sure you guys stick around for that. I actually think it was my favorite part of the episode. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of You Crack Me Up. Alex just got a house.
Woo! Well, maybe.
Hey, it got accepted. It got accepted though, right? That's exciting. I didn't know you guys were doing that.
No, we keep it low key. Austin housing market is nuts.
I bet it is. Trust me, there's one neighborhood that we're looking at right now where this wasn't even on our radar, and then just with the way things have been this year, it's like, is this the right time? What do we do? Like, I have no idea. And Richardson is so hard because it doesn't matter. Richardson is crazy. It's like you find this like 1,400 square foot hasn't been updated in forever, and it's like way more expensive than anywhere else. Like, Richardson housing market is just crazy. And so there's this one little neighborhood that's like this new development that they put together. It's like one street, and it's like new houses down one side, like a dog park, and then you come around the other side and it's new houses, and there's still 3 available. And we've been basically
by, proximity.
Oh, yep. I go by it all the time and drive through. Yep. Anytime we go to Sprouts. Yep. It's just right across the street. And I'm like, oh, perfect. We're like, oh, lot number 2 would be perfect. The garage is literally all the way in the back. That would be fantastic. And so we've just said that we are literally open to it. If the possibility or something is able to come just based on the things that we have coming up in the back half of the year or later, like that's the thing is if it's not now, then I'll just wait. Somebody will eventually want to move out of one of those, and then we'll do it. But that's sort of where we're at when it comes to buying a house, which, by the way, thank you guys for hopefully sticking through the first few minutes of this. This is not what this episode is about at all.
No.
Again, what else would you guys expect to come here and listen to? Just, it's like, you guys are obsessed with parenting and the nervous system. I'm like, that's essentially, you're correct. That's
nervous system always. Parenting,
new.
It's our season of life.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's just the season that we're in. Again, if you're new to this podcast, so I've been married now almost 11 years this year, and I have 2 daughters. I have Remington, who's getting ready to be 5 in a couple months, and then I have my youngest, Eleanor, who's getting ready to be 1 in like 3 weeks, which is crazy. So she's getting ready to have her first birthday. And Alex, you have your sweet little baby Georgia. How old is Georgia? Like 7 months now?
Georgia, yep, 7 months.
7 months. So we're just both in this new phase of, parenting and trying to learn and really just doing the best that you can for your baby. Like I always try to have a softened approach. There are some times where I just don't ever approach anything that way, but I try to have that approach when it comes to parenting, because there are so many opinions out there, so many things that people talk about. And like you and I were discussing before the podcast even started, every baby is so different. Like, I feel like children teach you the thing that we talk about is like, there is no one right way to do anything. There are so many options that we have. I think what you need to know is be willing and be open to change your mind about certain things, but also just be willing to continue to like, what do we need to do to progress? What do we need to do to go in the right direction? Because somebody who has a baby whose temperament is completely opposite of yours is going to recommend one thing. And then somebody who has a temperament of a baby that is exactly like yours is going to offer another thing. And it's like, unfortunately, both of those can be right. We can't sit here and say, this is the absolute 100% correct way to raise your baby. We've done the stats, and it's like, this is how it needs to go. Like every baby is such a unique puzzle piece that you have to figure it out. And again, it'll be fun if and when you guys decide to have a second one, of like just the differences that you're like, oh, okay. Like, we also thought, because Remington is so full energy when she was born, we're like, well, I can only imagine what the temperament will be of the second one. Like, maybe she'll be the really chill one, and maybe she'll be like this. And it's like, no, we essentially have 2 crackheads that run around our house and run everything.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's funny. we definitely Georgia can't be an only child. We both have multiple siblings, so we're like, we gotta give her the same experience, and
Right.
I'm really glad she's our first because, like you said, every baby just has different temperaments, and like we were talking about before we started recording, I just kind of thought, you kind of grow into your personality, like based on your experiences and like things like that. And I know like my comments my parents have made, like, oh no, Alex, like you were super busy. You're always, funny kid, like you wouldn't sleep, whatever the case. Um, and you hear those stories, but I think it's like once you have a baby, it's truly one of those things where it's like, if you know, you know,
Mhm.
because I could hear all the information before, but it's just not real until like you actually have it. And then it's almost like I never heard any of it. I'm like, why did nobody tell me? And then it's like, actually, I'm pretty sure people told me, but I just didn't. It wasn't
When
real. I
you're
didn't viscerally experience it. And so now having Georgia, oh gosh, she came out with a personality. She came out with a temperament, and it is so sensitive and beautiful and high maintenance and engaging. And it'll be awesome. Like the older she gets, it's something I want to foster, but
Mhm.
caring for her has been hard because I think I just expected this beautiful newborn swaddled baby that would smile at me when she was full and maybe cry when she was hungry or needed attention, and then she would just sleep. I'd put her down and we'd get all the cute little newborn photos, and she would really only cry like to tell me, "Hey mom, I need you." Versus
Mhm.
like, "I heard a loud noise. You and dad, I don't like your tones right now. I have, I'm too tired. I'm not tired enough. No, I don't like that toy." I
Mhm.
don't know.
Oh,
Just
wait till the crying sets off the
screaming.
crying. We literally had that happen
Yeah.
yesterday of Remy Remy
Oh
being upset and started
no.
crying, and then Elle was in her little walker running around, and sister started crying, and she was like, "What is going on?" So out of nowhere, she just starts crying. I was like, "Oh my gosh, what is happening in here right now?"
Oh yeah. Well, I'm glad Georgia was our first because I'm like, okay, she's she has set the bar, right? So like if we can do this, well, the next one will be fine. Even if the next one's just like Georgia, we know exactly what to do. So if they're any more chill than that, we're gonna feel like we won the lottery.
Mhm. What do you feel like has been the most so again, it I know, like, I'm probably 99.9% of our audience is probably parents and probably moms,
Right.
and whenever you go through this process of you're gonna have a child or this is coming up and you start talking to people and you wanna learn and you're like, "Okay, we have, like, 9 months to prepare, so we'll totally be ready in 9 months," right? Like, I've never try to think of that project that you did in school, and if you were given 9 months, you'd take all that time, right? You definitely wouldn't cram right before to make sure that you knew what you needed to know. You for sure
Yeah.
wouldn't do that. But you hear all these differing things, and I think the most unfortunate thing is a lot of people tend to wanna pour a lot of the negative on you. "Oh, make sure you get sleep now. Oh, make sure you enjoy this now," and it's like they put all that stuff, and I'm like, I don't give a shit about any of that stuff, like, it doesn't matter, like, all the fun little memories I have with Remy and Elle, I would give up for any amount of that stuff, like, I do not care whatsoever, um, but what would you say is, like, one of the most beneficial things that you've heard before you had Georgia? And then, like, what was one of the things that just, like, drove you nuts? It, like, was okay. Now, of course, with the perspective of you going through this for 7 months.
Mm. I think
Could everyone hear that? Because I heard that.
I I did a
Do I
really good
offend someone or do I not offend someone?
I feel like that's gonna be going through my mind this whole podcast because moms are we're very sensitive because there's so much mom guilt that we're just like riddled with. And so the moment somebody says what they do, if you don't do that, there's this feeling of shame, right? Like
Mhm,
or anger or defensiveness or you feel judgment even though maybe the statement was not judgmental at all. It's just information. Um and mom, thanks for mom shaming me, like that goes around all the time, and it's like nobody shamed anybody. Like it's information about development and how our bodies work. like it's not, but I think we care so much that it feels like you just told me I'm a bad mom.
It's
It's like,
it goes back to
no, no, no,
exactly what
no.
it goes back to what we talked about when we explained how to treat someone who deals with a chronic health issue that you just don't understand. Like you want to help them, or you want to offer up opinions, or you want to tell them things. It's like it's the same for this.
Yeah.
I know that you mean well with where you're coming from, and you can appreciate that, but just like the ability to be like, to solve like minimal problems. Don't go for the parenting thing for another parent. Like, this is just from my own personal experience. Like, just figure out ways that you can help. Hey, can we bring you any food? Do you need somebody to come by and just like straighten up some things for you? Do you need just like a little bit of time for yourself? Do you need this? Like, even that within my relationship is just like, do you need some time where it's just like just you, like you just going to the grocery
Mhm.
store, you just going for a drive in the car, you like going outside, getting whatever you need. Like, do you just need that? Because if you do, it's very easy. We can make it work. But I think, again, we talked about this, is like, just because it worked for you, you want to attach to it. And you're like, oh my gosh, you have to do this. Like, we recommend it. And it's like, even I catch myself. There's things where I'm like, hey, this worked great. And we've seen it work great for a lot of people. So I can get on that wavelength and try to drive that. But part of it is just like, hey, we're just here to help. We want to offer this. Like, anything that we talk about within even this episode, they're just potential things that you can look into. Like, if everything's good and you're
Mhm.
happy with where you're at, then keep that going. But if something's going on and you feel like you need help and something's got to give or something needs to change, like, then be willing to also take some of those things as well. Like, it's okay to change your mind. It is completely okay.
It's one of the healthiest things you can do to change your mind when you've learned new information, and I think a lot of us tend to, like, wanna dig our heels in because we have these weird feelings about being, quote, unquote, "wrong," and it's like, "You weren't wrong." Like, I'm sure what you were doing served you in the past,
We had bad
and
information.
but at the same time, it could have helped, but now we know this new information, so how can we incorporate that and potentially do something different, make it better,
Hmm.
you know? Um, and so just to answer the questions you asked, I think
Perfect. Who are we
before
offending?
probably a lot of people. I'll probably get some hate mail after this. Not yet. Probably when we get in later into stuff. But like just for these questions, it's I'm just trying to think, like, most of the opinions I got were about labor, and, like, actual childbirth, and, like, birthing experiences, and you don't hear really any good things about that. It's not portrayed well in TV and movies, in stories, it's all these horror stories, and so I worked really hard to just kind of guard my own energy and my mind because I wanted to have a home birth. And most people think I'm wacko, for wanting to do something like that. We have a lot of the United States kind of Western civilization has a lot of outdated information about how this is like super scary and dangerous and
Hmm.
harmful. And it's like, actually, how do you think we got here? Like, do
Yep.
you think we always had hospitals with obstetricians ready to do C sections? Like, no. This is kind of how we've evolved as a human as a species for thousands and thousands of years.
Mhm.
Um, and but I wouldn't have those conversations. I knew what I knew and I knew the information I had and I went with my instincts. And I was able to have, the beautiful home birth. That was our first episode we ever did.
Yeah.
So if you want to hear more about that, feel free to go check that out. Um, you can also listen to Brandon and Haven's story. They
Which
planned
is
for
completely
something
different. Yeah.
something
Uh-huh.
similar and did all the things, and it did not turn out that way,
Mhm.
which is just kind of goes into what we're talking about. Like, you can plan, you can plan, you can plan. You can think of what you're gonna be like as a parent and what you're gonna be like as a couple and what your baby's gonna be like, and then they actually get here and you're thrown into the shit, and it's like, "Oh, okay, yes, you can watch this show. Watch the show.
Uh-huh.
Watch the damn
Ugh.
TV."
I'm not gonna be the parent who ever does that. I that's like my one thing I will tell people is I'm like, whatever you say you're probably not gonna do, you're probably gonna do,
Yeah,
and be okay with that. Give
uh-huh.
yourself some grace in that, because you're gonna be like, son
Yeah,
of a bitch, I said I never was gonna do that, and then I did that, and it's like, but that's
and
okay.
some days are harder than others. Like, some days I'm super struggling and I'm trying to, like, regulate myself because I have a baby that can't regulate herself, so she co-regulates from me,
Of
right? Because
course,
they're
you
just
think
like
she's not picking up on
walking.
that frequency? Come on
Right,
now.
and their little walking fight or flight nervous systems, and they have to, part of development is, like, getting that parasympathetic tone, that vagus nerve tone, um, that's part of development, and, like, they learn that from their caregivers. That's why attachment is so important, and having a loving, responsive caregiver. That's why that's important, because it literally changes your physiology and helps your foundation, your development, so that when you grow, our brains are working correctly, right?
Mhm.
Um, our bodies are working the way that they're supposed to, the way that they were designed. Not talking about anything like being neurotypical or neurodivergent or anything like that, but just that's kind of the basis of our nervous system. Is
Mhm.
that's why we need attachment. That's why that's so important for us as a species, and why we're biologically designed as infants to cry, because that's our signal. Hi, I need somebody to respond, because
Imagine how terrifying
I
it would
need
be
that
if your
regulate.
baby didn't give you some sort of feedback in some way. You just
Yeah,
wouldn't know. You'd be like,
you would have no idea.
exactly.
Uh-huh, and that's it's their survival response. If they couldn't cry, then they would die. Like it's crazy to say, that's literally how that happens, and that's why, I mean, if we're going into sleep and we're talking about SIDS and all this sort of stuff, like all the research about that's why it's helpful to have your baby close to you in like a bassinet. That's why we put them in a bassinet when they first come home. You don't go right into a crib in another room, because they need that co-regulation from the caregiver to remind them to breathe, to feed them, to be there around the clock, to comfort them. Comforting is also a need, just like not having a wet diaper, needing food, needing sleep. All those things are a serious need developmentally for our infants. And so, um,
Well, think about for us as adults, like how well do you do whenever you're taken out of your element and you have to do it in a completely different place? Like for us in this recording situation, let's imagine all of a sudden it's like we don't have all this, and for some weird reason we have to do all this outside on our picnic table, and it's like it would be a little bit chaotic. Could we potentially pull it off? It's like maybe. You have to realize that for 9 months of development, they've been in this certain environment. They've been there. It's been protecting them and helping them grow and thrive. And then all of a sudden, now all of that has changed. And now I'm out in this world and it's very different. And the touch, everything is different, sound, touch, all that stuff that they're taking in. And it's like, we have to be aware of that. And you have to be super, super conscious of just all those things. Because you're right. It's so hard to, we tried to figure out when we transition of like, she's in the room with us and it's like, when do we let her go into her room now? When do we,
mhm,
and again,
there's no
as a
one right
parent,
way.
yeah, and as a parent, you're going to stress out about it. Like literally, I had to go check on Elle the other night because of the way she was laying down. Because now we have her in like a sleep sack, so she like rolls all over the place, and she sort of like Remy was literally like put her here. She'd pretty much be here. She might wedge herself up against like the corner, but like she's good. Elle is like a crackhead sleeper. She is all over the place. And so she'll sleep with like her butt up in the air. Like she does all
Uh-huh,
this goofy stuff.
yep,
But the way she was laying, it was just very weird. And again, any parent can relate to this comment right here is where you literally are staring at them and you're like, just let me see you move.
I
Can
need
I
to
see
see
you
you breathe.
breathing? Yes. And you're just like,
Yeah.
just move. You're like, God. So literally, him and I had a friend of hers over that was staying at the house with us, and we were hanging out, and I was just like looking at her, and I'm like, I don't know. I sometimes I just get these feelings. I'm like, I feel like I need to check. And when I was looking at it, I was like, and so I made Haven look, and then she was like, well, I don't know. Now you're worrying me. So I was like, I'm just gonna go in and check on her. Like, I
Yeah,
don't care. She wakes up, so what? She's like, you better
yeah,
not wake her up. And I'm like, but if I do, it's better than the other. It's better than
right.
the other option that we didn't go check on her. So I went and checked on her. And again, my child, for those of you who don't know, has a mullet. She has tons of hair. It's a little better than a mullet. It's
Most of
just
your
super,
children have
yeah.
a ton
She's
of
got
hair.
a lot of hair. So when I'm looking at her, I'm like, I can't tell how she's laying. Like, is she face down? Like, what is going on? So when I go in there, I literally like have my flashlight shining through my fingers so it's not super bright on
Right.
my phone. And I like look, and she's just turned like this, looking this, and I had no idea. And I like look at her and I put my hand on her back and I was like, okay, she's fine. I walked out and everything was fine. And that's not the first time I've done that, by the way. I'm definitely the one that's just like, I'm constantly want to be able to check on them. Like we've got a 4-year-old, we still have the baby camera in her bedroom so we can check on her while she sleeps.
Yeah.
parents are like, "They're big enough, what are you worried about?" I'm like, "I don't know, I just still like
It
the
makes
ability
feel
to have it."
better.
Yes. I'm a
No,
helicopter
totally.
parent, okay?
I think it's okay to want your babies to make sure, they're breathing. I think that's normal. There's probably a little bit of anxiety in there. I have that too,
Oh,
100%. But at the same time, like, there's a difference between like, you let them experience their big emotions and you hold space for them for that, which is
mhm,
not a helicopter parent is like, "Oh, no, okay, you're crying. Don't cry. Let me fix it. Here, look at this thing. You don't need to cry. Be happy." Like,
mhm.
and so they never actually get to experience icky, heavy emotions, and they're told that those aren't okay and we should always be happy, which is how we kinda create
The problems that we
dysregulated
have now, yep,
adults. Yep,
mhm.
exactly. Um,
That probably just shattered glass for, like, a lot of people. They're like, "Wait a second. This feels very familiar." I'm like, "It should feel familiar." I think this is what has gotten us to where we're at right now is we're horrible at self-regulating because we get horrible lessons on self-regulation when we're young.
we don't know how. I think, like, as we look at, just generational trauma and that sort of stuff, the emotional regulation piece is still something that we are unraveling in regards to how to parent, because there's really 2 schools of thought, right? There's like, well, one school I think has been, at least in Western, our society has been the biggest, which is like this authoritarian style, which is like, do what I say. Don't ask questions. Questions are disrespectful. Why are you back talking me? Okay. Oh, you spilled the milk. Okay, let's go sit in timeout. You know better than that.
Yep,
You know what these sorts of things, like we're punishing mistakes, we're punishing um just developmental things, like,
mhm.
"Oh my gosh, you should not be lying to me," but, like, lying is a super important part of development. It's future casting. It's they're creating visions, they're strategically planning. Like, it's actually really exciting when a kid lies, at least for me, and especially when I'm taking care of, like, the neurodevelopmental disordered population where maybe, we're 8 years old, but we have the function of like a 2 or 3-year-old, right? And then speech, we're getting speech back. There's speech happening. They're using words and they're linking words together to make some sentences. And then we finally get to the point where they tell a lie, and the lie would just be like, "No, my dinosaur ate that."
Mhm.
Like something super
Yeah,
simple, but like I'm like, "They lied?
yeah.
That's great." Because
It's
it takes this super sophisticated brain processes in order to, like, link this together, right? And
oh, when
so
Georgia
I
starts
always
talking to
appreciate
you
my
in complete sentences, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I forget where I was, and I was FaceTiming Remy the other day, and she again, she just always wants to tell me stories, and she wants to, like, when I'm not there, she gotta tell me about what was going on, and she's like, "Dad, I lost my thing, but then when I was looking for it, I was like, 'Oh my gosh, literally, it's right over there,' and this is
I love her
this is
stories.
exactly," and
This is
she
just
just goes,
exactly how she
"Literally," and I
talks.
was like, "Oh my gosh." And I was like, "What just happened?" And we're just laughing because she just again, she's always had this little personality, like, we took her to
Yeah,
church
she has.
yesterday, and she it's so funny to watch her have this balance of like a lot of me where she's just like very rough and want to get after it and want to play and not really care, and then a lot of Haven too where she wants to pretend to put makeup on and wants to dress up and wants to
Right,
take her purse to church with her all of her stuff in it. And so
and it needs to all
um
coordinate.
yeah, she wanted a purse for church yesterday. So Haven was like, well, based on the outfit that you want to wear, like these would be the best option, of course, because mom wants her to coordinate. So she was like, "You
Uh-huh.
could pick of these ones." And so she was like, "Okay." So she picked this like blue, like fringy, like she puts it on and she had to carry
Cute.
it in there. And we're just like, "Okay." And I was like, "Do you want to leave it in the car or do you want to bring it in?" She's like, "I want to bring it." I'm like, "Okay." And then literally the people who watch over the kids are like members of the church. So we know a lot of them. They're like,
Mhm.
Remy just cracks us up coming in here with her purse and like showing everyone and talking about what's in it and then setting it over there. I was like, "Yep, that is
My daughter.
1000% yes, her." And, you talk about, like, fostering things in her, like, she just always has this ability. I think she just and it probably it's a kid thing, but a lot of it, I think, is her personality of, like, she just assumes the best and like most amazing of everyone. And she just assumes that you are literally her best friend and you may not even know her. And she's just like, yeah, it's okay. Come with me. Let's do this. Like she just does this with
Mhm.
almost all the
She's
kids that
very
she hangs
inclusive.
out with. And should her energy, like she has the ability to have this energy and frequency when she comes into a room that everyone knows she came into a room and then she sort of takes that thing over. And so
Mhm.
I've watched her now do that at school and then whenever she's at church and then whenever kids come over and hang out and I'm like, I don't even know how to put a what you would call that, but it's like whatever that is will serve you so much later in your life. Just the ability to win people over and to feel very comfortable, talking to people and, you know, making everyone be your friend rather than just like, oh, I'm just friends with these people. It's like,
Mhm.
I want her to be able to have that. And I'm like, it's like we talk about, I want to be able to foster that in her as much as possible. How do I give you opportunities in order to be able to do that? And not do anything to like, I don't know, like sometimes I feel like there's certain behaviors that we feel like we don't like, which again needs to be our own mirror into where did that come from you? Or is that from a parent? Or is that from an
Or was
old
that
significant other?
was it scolded in you? Like, is that a behavior you had when you were a kid that you got in trouble for? So then you see it in your kid, and your immediate knee-jerk reaction is, "That's bad.
Mhm.
That's disrespect. That's whatever."
Which
And now you need to discipline it when actually it may not actually be that bad.
it
But we have
most
an
of the time
aversion.
yeah, most of the time it really isn't. And I would always say, um, we talked about this the other day. I've got like a group of guys that I hang out with from the church, and one of them was just talking about. It's funny, my like little small group of guys, we essentially joke that we're just a group of guys that have dad issues because we all have these things going on with our dads, and so one of them was focusing so hard on I don't want to become my dad. Like that was almost his mantra.
Mhm.
That was what they don't realize is that almost becomes the affirmation is I do not want to become my dad. And I'm like, well, your brain isn't going to be able to understand the do not want to. And you're just literally saying, I am becoming my dad. Like you don't understand subconsciously, but that's the frequency and energy that you are driving towards yourself is that versus
Yeah,
what
there's
type
no
of dad do you,
intentionality of what
yeah,
you want to
what
be.
type of dad do you want to be? What do you want that to look like? What do you want your kids to feel like or say about you? What would their experience be about you? How would they describe you as a parent? Like those are the things for me because I used to be like that too. I'm like, I don't want to end up like that. But then I'm like, sometimes I open up my mouth and my dad comes out and I'm like, oh
Mhm.
geez. And you're like, that's not what I ever wanted or intended. But you have to make sure that you, again, first of all, just give yourself like a little bit of grace. We're all trying to figure this thing out. How often did you look at an adult in their 30s and you're like, man, that person has their flipping life together? And I'm like,
Yeah.
now in my 30s, and I'm like, well, that's bullshit. And so we've now learned that that's not true.
Like, duck on the surface, but underneath their feet are just like
Uh-huh. Oh, it looks so calm up there. And it's like, nah, dude,
right?
below. It's like, this is all the stuff that's going on. Like
Serene on the
everyone,
outside, chaos on the
yep.
inside. Yep.
Everyone has shit that's going on and it's okay. And even with the stuff that we talk about, I screw this up all the time. You're going to screw this up. You're going to do things like one of the things that I constantly catch myself and it's like I don't want her to ever hurt herself, but I say be careful a lot. And I'm like, I don't want her to be careful.
Mm,
I do not want my child to
yeah.
live her life carefully. I've done nothing in my life that let me live my life carefully and it's gotten me where I am and it's part of what I love. It's just like just go for it. And so I have to catch myself because it's like I say that because I don't want her to hurt herself. It's my inherent want to protect her. But in that, there's like this subconscious conversation that's going to be happening over and over of like, I always have to be careful. And I don't want that to stop her from taking a risk or taking a step that would be like, oh, it's worth it. It's part of it. It's what's going to happen. It's, Elle
Yeah,
learning
and
to
with
walk and she falls down and she cries and things happen. I'm like, that's going to happen though. I can't keep
yeah.
you. It's the only way you're going to learn how to walk.
Well, and with statements like that, so, like, "Be careful," "Good job," is one of them. Um, and just saying, like, "No, don't." Like, "Don't XYZ," all those they're so vague, and, like, we know what we mean when we say them.
Hmm.
So, like, if we're watching our kid play at the park and they're, climbing up on the outside of the I'm losing my words. I was gonna say playpen. That's not right. The structure, the play structure, the tower. We'll go with tower. And they're not
What's
using
funny
like
is I wanna tell you, and I'm like, I don't
is
really have it either.
the tower. The tower.
I know
Yeah,
what you're
right?
talking about.
Okay,
Sure.
whatever. Okay, play structure, playground, there's a tall tower and there's like a right way to get into the tower, but then, they have the poles and you always see kids like climbing on the poles or they find out a way to like scale the tower or something like that. And like we typically like a parent, you're looking at that and like, okay, we know that they're not doing it right. So we either want to tell them, hey, don't do that. Don't climb that way, go the right way. Or we want to say, hey, be careful because
Wha
we're scared they're gonna hurt themselves.
Mhm.
But it completely takes out I guess what I wish I knew, and I guess I did know, but like it's one of those if you know, you know, is like kids, they know a lot. Like infants, they know way more than we give them credit for. And I think we come from this mindset of I'm the adult, so I know better and I'm going to tell you what to do versus we have to let them develop and we're there to guide them. We're not there to live their lives for them. We're not there to tell them who to be or what to do. We're literally our purpose is to steward and foster and to guide. And so we have to be careful with some of these things that come out of our mouths because if I'm telling the kid to be careful versus like something helpful, which is like, hey, notice where you're putting your hand. Like, do you see where you're putting your hand, or do you feel that that's slippery? And you're helping them notice these things. That's very different than just be careful.
Yep.
But and then you save be careful for when they're actually like about to run into the street, and you save no, or be careful, stop. And then they're actually like, oh shit, like I don't ever hear that. So it must be serious, right?
Yep.
Or like good job when we say, oh, good job. I'm watching like my 7-month-old right now. She's like sitting. And so she's kind of like copying. I'll show her like how to push the button, right? And she starts like slapping the button, or like right now she's really fascinated with like clapping. And so
Oh, yeah,
we're
that's the
doing all
best.
that sort of stuff. And like the initial reaction is when she does it to say, good job. But like what for doing the result for doing it like I wanted her to do it versus saying like way to work hard or keep and you say keep trying, you build their frustration tolerance by saying I love watching you do that. Like, I love watching you learn. Way to go. Good effort. And you're praising the effort versus the results. You're fostering a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Because if all they hear is good job when they do the thing, then they're going to think that's the only time they're worth something. And that's the only time they do a good job is when they
Mhm.
complete the thing, or the only time that, yeah, exactly what you were saying with being risky is not okay. It's too scary. I need to be careful constantly when I'm doing something and learning. And like if a kid's climbing, you know, it's because they trust their bodies to do it.
Well, Jordan Peterson talks about that. He has a quote where he's like, there's growth in the fact when you let your kids do something very dangerous carefully. Like, I forget
Yes,
how he words it
exactly.
specifically, but it's
Mhm.
like, if you watch them, like, part of you is like, oh my gosh, that's terrifying. But if you
Your
watch
heart's
them,
literally out of your chest because 'cause they're your heart, but you're watching them and they generally will be very careful because it's the same thing like right now, so we're doing baby-led weaning and Georgia's eating solid foods. And so, like, she had a big strip of chicken
I know
last
exactly
night.
what you're about to, yeah.
Well, you're constantly like, "Oh my god, she's gonna choke," and she's like chewing off these big pieces, and I don't even know how many videos I've watched the difference of gagging and choking.
Hmm.
And what I've learned is choking is actually really rare, especially when a baby's feeding themselves. Again, because when they're feeding themselves, all of their protective mechanisms are in place.
Hmm.
So the epiglottis, right, flips over the trachea where you breathe. When you're swallowing, that thing bounces back and forth. It goes over your trachea or it goes over your esophagus where the
Assuming
food's supposed
everything
to
is
go.
healthy, yes.
If yes, okay, so we have a
With
typical baby,
normal
right?
neurological function,
Normal,
yes, all
yes,
that should be
yes.
fine.
Everything's developing the way that it's supposed to. So we're practicing solids now, and so she's got this big chunk of meat in her hand, and she's just kind of gnawing at it, half sucking, half gnawing, chewing, and she gets a bite, and my heart's out of my chest because I'm
Because she
watching
goes,
her.
and she makes these crazy
Yeah,
noises, and you're like,
her eyes will start watering sometimes, like, she starts like, "Oh,
you
oh."
laugh, this'll be you very, very soon. Garrett's over here,
Yeah.
and he's I'm like,
Uh-huh.
"Bro, I'm telling you, I've had to
Yeah.
talk my mother-in-law, my wife off the ledge multiple times." I'm like, "Guys, she has a process that protects from this," and I'm
Uh-huh.
like, "I'm also trained in this. If anything ever happened, I'm like, this is what we
Yeah.
would do." Which, by the way, we bought one of those de-choker things, like, there's
Clay got
Yep,
yeah.
there's one for
Uh-huh.
Remy and one for Elle at my in-laws' house, and then there's at
Yeah.
our house too, where they spend a majority of the
Yeah.
time, because part of it is like when you and I went through school, we got educated on a lot of that. We learned about what you do and how you get things cleared out and what you would do in order to remove an obstruction if your baby has one. But my in-laws, again, I have this weird thing. um, some of my best friends, which is very funny to me, are actually firefighters, and I think if I didn't do what I do, I think that probably would have been something that I could have done, and it's because when shit is hitting the fan, I'm just like, "Here, you can't I can get me to stress out over dumb shit, and I can do all this, but when there's complete and utter chaos," which again, if we really go back into developmental stuff, this probably comes from something like that, and it may not necessarily be a good thing developmentally, but when shit is hitting the fan, I just have the ability to remain super, super calm and just do whatever the next most logical thing is. Like one time, I may have even told this story on the podcast. We were walking into a Tom Thumb. If you're not in our area, that's like a very popular thing in the South. Tom Thumb,
Grocery
Albertsons,
store.
yeah, grocery store. And they have that area that you walk into where they have like all the sodas on display, and they have all this. Maybe they have a like an outdoor picnic set up with like chairs and like an umbrella, and it's like, hey, you should get this for your house. Well, I was with my in-laws and my wife. We didn't have any kids at the time, and we were walking in the store. This is probably when I lived with them, by the way, when I was trying to start a business and living with my in-laws. um Super fun time. And we walked into the store, and as we're walking in, like I'm going to grab a cart, and we see this lady literally sitting in this chair, and she's like almost passed out. She's like over in one of the little like picnic area setup thing, and she's just like sitting back in the chair. She's out of it. And I didn't even notice her. And my mother-in-law was like, "Hey, do you think she's okay?" And so I'm like, "I don't know. I'll go over and check on her." And so I go over and I'm trying to talk to her, and she can barely talk. She's like whispering. And I'm like, "Are you okay?" And this was during the summer, by the way. So it's Texas. It's probably like 100 and something outside. Like she's been outside. It's been very hot. And I'm like, I could tell she's probably almost dehydrated. So I'm like, okay, it's probably not good. So I literally send my father-in-law inside. I'm like, hey, can you run inside? Like, we'll buy it. Get her like a Gatorade, a Powerade, something. I'm like, we can't just give her water. I'm like, it probably needs to have some other stuff in it too, just so she can get a little bit of energy back potentially. So I was like, we'll pay for it, whatever, run inside, go grab that. And I'm just sitting there with her, and I'm talking to her, and while I do that, she goes into a full-blown seizure and starts like
Mhm.
convulsing. And so I literally like take and support her. She's sliding out of the chair, so I slide her down gently onto the ground, and I just literally lay there with my hand behind her head, making sure she's not hitting anything. Don't shove anything in anyone's mouth when they're having a seizure. That is not true. Do not do that. Don't put your hand anywhere near their mouth. So she has a seizure, and I'm just sitting there. Of course, my mother-in-law is like praying in tongues, and my wife is crying. And like I have no idea any of this stuff is going on. Father-in-law goes to bring the thing out. I'm like, hey, I need you to go inside and literally call 911 now. Like, we've got to get someone here. She just had a seizure. He's like, okay. Brings me the thing. She calms down. I like get a little bit of it was like a blue Powerade or something. Like I pour a little bit of that in there, and I'm talking to her, and I can't remember what she told me. It was just like, yeah, I've been stuck outside. Like, I think I got a little dehydrated. Like she was just talking about all this. I'm like, okay. And I'm just talking to her and trying to keep her calm. And then, we're not that far from a fire station. So they show up, come in, they get her on the thing, they take her out. I kind of tell them what was going on. And then like, we just continue, once that's done and we're good, like we go inside, go shopping and do all that. And my mother-in-law always loves to share that story. She's like, I just don't know how you do that. And I'm like, I don't know. When shit's hitting the fan, I just have the ability to fortunately remain super calm and just go, hey, we need to do this. Like it was just, I could even remember back, hey, go get me that. Cool. Hey, I need you to go call 911 right now. Like they need to literally get someone out here. Okay, cool. And I'm just like sitting there with her. I'm like, it's going to be okay. She's just fine. Like, what do we do? Do we do this? I'm like, no, just leave her alone. It's going to be just fine. So there is an ability in that. But whenever you talk about like the amount of times where I'm slowly starting to let myself like let them, to get back to the point, let them do something very dangerous carefully, more often than not, I will watch Remy go to make a decision that would probably not be smart, and then she will reverse herself out of that and go, that's not a good idea. That's not every
Mhm.
time. And sure, is she hurting herself, but it's just like, I'm gonna step over and I'm gonna do this, and then she like goes to do it, and she's like, I don't think, like, you can tell her little brain is like, I don't think that's a good idea, and then they sort of back out of it, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, or
Yep.
like,
And it's not the hurting themselves, like, our kids are gonna get hurt, like how I can remember so many times where I got hurt, and that's not the traumatic thing. The traumatic thing is if your caregiver or your parent, like, doesn't show up for you,
mhm,
like, that's what's traumatic. But so we hurt ourselves, and then we go to have comfort, and when our person is there comforting us, we're okay, and we're taught how to deal, hopefully, how to deal with those big emotions, and I think what I was alluding to earlier. I love that story you just shared. I have so many. I have stories very similar.
mhm.
Actually, recently we go to Luby's every Sunday after church, and something similar happened in Luby's only like a couple months ago. That's crazy. Um,
I love that
but I
there's a
think
Luby's open near you. Like, that's I used to go to that.
good
That was like a
food from
Oklahoma
good
thing. Yeah.
people. That's what it has on there. We go to Luby's cafeteria. We've done that since I was a kid, and so we still do it now with our kids. It's kind of fun. Um, and I think there's something yeah, like, ever since I can remember, I remember being, like, 13, and I had an uncle slip and fall on our tile steps, and he cut a piece of his ear, and they were like, "Alex, does he need stitches?" And I'm 13 years old, Brandon, and I'm like, "Well, part of his ear's missing. Probably."
Probably.
Like,
Good job,
like,
Dr. Alex.
I
No,
right?
again, this
Like,
is
I get but you're just you I don't know, like, I don't know what that is, and there's
again, I
probably
think it's
some
a
dysregulation in there from
I
my
think it is,
childhood,
but I think there's also
and
probably a gift in that. Like, it's again, I think it's
absolutely.
probably part of how you're designed. Like,
Mhm.
you bringing that up, literally another one for me. We were over at a friend's house. They were having like a pool party. They had just had their pool put in. Everyone's over there hanging out, and one of my wife's really good friends, Meg, her husband Jim, is literally walking and he slips. And basically, where they had set their pool up, there's like this ledge that comes up. So he tripped and he hit his knee right on the ledge where they had that set up. And it's like new stone. So it was super sharp. So
Mm.
literally right below his knee, I'm talking the
With, like, the
cleanest cut,
bone.
just
Oh,
like
yeah.
cut
Deep.
right through that thing. And I'm inside. And of course, literally, Haven's like, you need to go outside. Jim literally just slipped and fell and he cut up his leg. And I'm like, okay, of course I need to be the one. So it's like me and then another friend of ours, Julia, who's a nurse. They send us out there and I'm just like, okay, like what is it that's going on? And so he is literally just sitting down and it looks normal to me because with his leg straight, it literally is closing up the wound. Like
Mhm.
that's how clean it was. And he's like, well, when I bend my knee, it does this. And he bends his knee and blood just shoots out. And I'm like, okay, well, let's not do that. Let's keep your legs straight. And he's like, okay. And so like, what do we do? And I was like, well, we need to take him somewhere.
Give me
Obviously,
a
I was like,
butterfly
yep.
Band-Aid.
I'm like, Jim, keep your legs straight. I literally essentially pick him up and then they're like, well, how's he going to get in the car? And I go, just sit down. I climb through the back seat of the car and I grab him and I drag him through the car so he can sit with his legs straight. And
Mhm.
who's the person that jumps in the car with Jim and Meg so we can go figure out what they're supposed to do? Me. So I hop in the car with her and she's like, again, it's her husband. So she's freaking out. What do I do? And I'm like, here's the thing. I said, we could take him to a hospital. We're probably going to be sitting in a waiting room for a long time and they might stitch him up. They might not. They're probably going to want to give him a tetanus or something like more than likely this is what's going to happen. I'm like, you're going to be there for a while. I said, or we could take him to an urgent care. We can see what they recommend and what they would do. And then if they recommend from there that he should go to the hospital, then we go there. She's like, that sounds like a good idea. I'm like, good. So we go there. Because we kept his leg straight, the wound like literally almost had essentially closed back up. They like
Yeah.
butterflied it, cleaned it up with some
Mhm.
iodine, like gave him a thing, and he was literally good to go. And I remember like a week later, she was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I was literally freaking out. I'm like, hey, it's no problem. This is
It's so
literally just
funny.
what I
Yeah.
do is when it's chaotic and everything's
Yep.
like breaking down for you, it's like, it's okay. I'm just going to continue to be the anchor that you could just attach to. I'm going to be sturdy so that when everything is going everywhere, it's cool. We got you. I'm right
Yep.
here, which apparently is why we have a podcast together. It's like, hey, if you can't figure it out,
Yep.
don't worry. We got you.
Yep. We both I think we could probably do like a 2-hour podcast episode on how many stories we have
I
like
think we
that
should do a story
from my
episode.
childhood. Okay,
I
we
think
could
we
do it.
should just
Write it down so we remember.
I think that's
Um,
literally also one of those things that, needs to probably be put in here more is just the amount of stories that we have,
story.
even with just like our outreach program that's getting ready to come up. Like we send a bunch of our
Yeah,
docs to Mexico City, El Salvador, the Philippines. Like we go out and literally serve those communities for free. And
for a week.
every single one of our communities personally basically supports that with the program that we have. So everyone in our community that actually supports our business is also supporting that outreach. And man, when you
Like
go,
what
there are
yeah.
crazy stories. Like
Yeah,
I've only
like when
been
you
once. Alex has been multiple times.
I've been 7 times.
You've been 7 times?
Yeah.
How's that
Uh-huh.
even? Have I really?
'Cause I went twice a year since 2000 the beginning of
Surely I've gone
2015.
twice. I don't remember. Now I'm literally sitting here and I'm like,
Mhm.
maybe it's either once or
But
twice.
I live for those trips
Yeah.
because
Well, I would be going this year if I
they
didn't have literally my child's birthday and my anniversary,
yeah.
like the weekends that they're going. I was
Well,
like,
I think it's different too because you in school, you had a wife, your kids, or like Remy was she born while we were in school?
no, not till way
Why do I feel like
after.
she was? Not till way after. Oh,
You're
I don't
thinking
know.
of someone
But
else.
I am?
Yeah,
Oh,
we had other friends
no,
with
I'm not.
babies.
We have lots of friends that have babies, yeah.
Yeah.
I,
But during school, we did
yeah,
not want to have any babies during school. That was actually a part of our
yeah,
plan was like,
that was
no
smart.
babies during school.
Um, maybe it wasn't 7, it might have been 5. It's an odd number, 5 or 7, I don't know. It's a bunch. It's a handful of times I've been. And, yeah, so when you come to us for care, a small percentage of every single person who pays us to help them get well goes to fund these outreach trips.
Yep.
Um,
And we send
and
students, we
so
take these people out there. Like we've got 2 docs that are getting ready to join me in my office and I'm sending both of them. They're both leaving. I think they leave like this Saturday and then they're going to be there for a
yep,
week. I'm super
mhm.
pumped because I'm tracking down a videographer for them and we're going to have somebody down there that's kind of keeping track of the whole journey for them while
Nice.
they're there and everything that's going on. And then we want to bring those videos back, obviously, to share with our, community and let
Yeah.
them know what we've been doing. One of the things, because again, before this episode gets out of hand, we talked about this in the beginning, and I want to make sure we bring it up because I'm sure it probably caught a lot of people's attention. I, again, as the migraine doc, was very surprised about this because I never made this correlation and hadn't thought anything about it. But I had recently had someone share with me the fact that colic might be linked to migraine in babies, essentially, or essentially the same thing. Like maybe colic should actually be just migraine for babies. And I'm to be 100% honest with you, like I take care of my own children, but and a couple of my patients like bring their kids in, but for the most part, I don't take care of a ton of kids because I have so many people who come in with migraine. I can't have the office being loud and crazy. Like I would have to have specific days just for kids most of the time, just for that situation. But I was like, it's been a while. So I literally looked up the definition. I just went on Google and I'm like, what is colic? And colic is essentially defined as predictable periods of significant distress in an otherwise well-fed or healthy baby, which I want to get into just for a second because there's another doc that I know that she in her community is pretty much the expert that everyone goes to. She has a relationship with almost every other pediatric, you offer some sort of service towards pediatrics. Like she has a relationship with them because of what she does and like her area of expertise. And one of the frustrations that she shared with me that I feel like I've heard now from more people is your baby having essentially what would be in almost every other circumstance, like failure to thrive. Like there's problems. They're not eating, they're not latching, they're not pooping, they're not sleep. Like any normal functions that a baby should have that they're not having when the doctor or the pediatrician tells you that that is normal or that that's okay or don't worry about it. I want every parent to know that they should trust their gut instinct and be like, nah, I'm going to go find someone else and get another opinion on that. Because there's nothing about that makes any sense. Like she was telling me about this mom who literally was taking like a baby bottle and like squeezing it into the baby's mouth so that the baby could get food because the baby couldn't even latch and like suckle in order to get that. And the pediatricians were telling them that the baby
Mm,
was fine. And I'm like, that's not cool.
mm,
Like
nope.
there is unfortunately what we've now just determined as normal. Like I know you probably know this better than me. Didn't they push back the standards on like, oh, developmentally, like babies should be here? And they're like, well, within like they took something that used to be like within the first 12 months and didn't they make it like 2 years now?
They delayed, yeah, so they pushed back the range of milestones,
Right.
by a
That's what it
few
was.
months, and then they completely took away that a baby should be crawling before walking. They just took that completely out. And so, like, brain development, the best way you hear me censoring?
Yeah.
The best way the
She's
best way I can
filtering
describe
on me.
yeah, filtering. Brain develop I won't censor myself, I'll just filter myself so I can say what I need to say in a digestible way, nice to the palate. Um,
You say it and I'll try to, again, we'll do better about trying to, if we say something that doesn't make any sense, one of us trying to put it in as simplified terms as possible if the other one says something that
yeah,
doesn't really make sense.
yes, and I just
Or Garrett, if you hear something and you're like, hey,
and
can you
wanting
explain
not
that?
wanting
Yeah.
y yeah, and not wanting to, like, make anybody too angry. Um, your brain development is it's like a baking recipe, not like cooking, right? When we cook, you can kind of just take whatever you have in your pantry, get some spices going,
And eyeball it.
saute some stuff, eyeball it, and it's probably going to come out
You
pretty
were you
good.
were talking about my specialty. This is what I literally
Yeah.
talk about with Haven and
Hmm.
I can cook, no problem. Give me some stuff. It'll be like
Yeah.
chopped up in her. I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna figure it out.
Yep. Whereas baking is very specific, step by step by step by step. If you put in the flour before you mix the sugar and the butter and the eggs, then we're going to get a very different type of cookie than if
Mhm.
you waited to put the flour in. It very much matters when you do things
Wait, is it
and
baking soda
how
or
you
baking
do
powder
them.
or both? How much? Wait, what? Yeah.
Right? I mean, and you have to watch, like, if 30 seconds too late, you're gonna get a dark golden instead of a nice, slightly golden chewy cookie. Like, all these things matter in
Cookies.
regards to trying to get a certain trying to get a certain result. And so the way that the brain develops, it is a baking recipe. It is not cooking. Um, it happens in a very specific way, right? We develop the right side before the left side. We develop the back before the front. The inside develops before the outside, and that happens in every single human. It's not like a free for all. Like we know how humans develop, right? And we know in conception when the baby's in the womb, things happen at a oops, I just hit the mic. Things happen at a very specific time in order to get a happy, healthy newborn baby, right? Same with the mom, same with labor. Like labor has to happen in a very specific way in order to have the baby go out of the birth canal, right? All of that has to happen. And so when we do things out of order, when things are out of order, depending on if we have too much stress at a certain amount of time in brain development, we'll get neurodeflections, we'll get funny behaviors, we'll get ADHD, impulsivity, tics, sleeping issues, digestive issues, ear infections, colic, aka migraines potentially, like super interesting stuff. And all of these symptoms are just messages
Yeah.
to us, the caregivers, what could be going right or what could be going wrong.
You just literally like described me as a child. Like I think back like just on certain things I used to deal with or struggle with when I was younger and it's like, mm-hmm. And again, mom, if you're listening, I don't blame you. It's okay. I still love you. You did the best that you could. Look at me now.
Mm.
I'm here. I'm here. And I'm working on it. So it's okay. It's not your fault. Like I
Mhm.
also don't put any of that blame there either. But it's like as you described that, I'm like, I can remember having digestive problems. I had really bad ear infections. Um, I probably could have been diagnosed and still probably could be diagnosed with ADD. If that's again the label that you want to put on it, it's like I literally have experienced and gone through exactly what it is that you're talking about and just the development. I also think that you hit on something that's super crucial of like everything happening from back, front, inside out. It's like a lot of things in healing happen that way, but a lot of things also in suppression happen that way. They get
Mhm.
suppressed and we hide it because people talk about like back pain or a pain in their shoulder or a thing that they can never get rid of. It's like there's certain ways that we suppress and store those emotions and we hide them back there because subconsciously you can't see them if I put them back there. It's in my invisible backpack that I'll just put back there. And it's why you can have that problem. And it's like, no matter how many massage therapists I get or whatever things I do, it's like, I still constantly experience that thing over and over.
Yeah.
It's like, unfortunately, you probably are until you deal with, understand, and express the emotion that created that issue,
And
more
I
than
think,
likely.
yeah, totally. And I think coming from like what's this episode about? We're talking about babies.
Yes. We're talking about babies. And right now we're talking
I
about
think
colic and babies.
okay, well, I think as far as what I've learned about I wouldn't even call like, I'm not even parenting yet, right? It's still caregiving very much. Where I know I can tell the parenting's coming because already, like, Georgia will be chewing on something like paper, and I'm like, "Okay, let's not chew on that tag," and she starts crying. She gets really upset because, she can't chew on the tag and so I'm like, "Okay,
But
this is
that's the
coming."
coolest part, mom.
But right? And but I'm still very much caregiving, and I think we have society has warped our view, new parents, new moms especially, because your brain changes from the hormones once you have a baby. You are linked with your kids, which is why that link is why it feels so intense is the hormones. Like your shit is literally physiologically changing. And so it's finding this you're laughing at me.
Yeah.
It's finding this balance in between what is good for you and what is good for your baby. And it's a balance and it's a harmony and it's different for every single family
Mhm. I was about to say
because
it's a
the
harmony for sure.
baby is different for every single family. So sleep is based on babies are supposed to wake every 2 to 3 hours because that's their survival cues, that's their survival mechanisms, that's how they live, right? And so that's very normal, but we're taught that that's not normal. So when you have a 10-week-old baby, I don't even know how many times I've seen like somebody's like it's a new mom and she's freaking out because her baby's 10 weeks old and is not sleeping through the night. What is she doing wrong?
Nothing.
And I'm like, "Oh, honey, like you are doing nothing wrong." Like,
By the way, it's actually probably more abnormal that they're sleeping for longer stints like that. That should actually be more of a sign of like, why are you sleeping so much and not needing, like, you should be waking up and needing to have a diaper change, needing to eat, needing some, even
well,
just
it's
mild
just
stimulation. It's like the fact that
yeah.
they're sleeping, again, congratulations if that's the case. And if they're a full, healthy baby, that's great. And that's always sort of my rule, which by the way, I feel like we try to go back to. If you don't be upset by what we're saying. If you're happy with what you have, then don't change shit. Keep doing what you're doing. That's not what this is there for. But if we're struggling or you feel like there's something in you that's like, there's something wrong here, I need to figure it out. It's like, then we have to figure out and lean into that.
I think that's the biggest disservice we do to new parents. It is this emphasis that we place on experts and gurus and like sleep training experts and pediatricians and like this idea that like moms don't know the most about their own baby. What the hell?
Yeah.
Like a mom's instinct, moms hear me, even though you're a new mom and you don't know what the hell you're doing, your instincts tell you everything you need to know. And if you need to go seek out help, and if that help is good or not, right? Like because you may seek the service of a healthcare provider and it helped this one person, but you get this advice and you're like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yes.
It
Like,
might not be for you. It's not for you and it's not for your baby. There's another healthcare provider that's designed to help you and your baby. And if your instinct is I'm going to bring my baby into bed with me because my baby sleeps best with me and I'm going to do this in a safe way and I know that that's quote unquote taboo, but that's how we all get sleep. That's okay. That's what I do. And it's totally a variation of normal.
mhm.
It's okay because sleep on some level is developmental. All the babies will learn to eventually sleep by themselves. It's just a harmony of what's best for the baby and what's best for you as a parent because you have to take care of yourself and you have to take care of the baby and trying to figure out what that looks like for you and your family may look different than somebody else. And so do not dull your instincts. Don't place don't place a higher emphasis on outside information if it is going against what your insides are telling you.
Yep. No one's more in
Because
tune with it, with all
yes.
that, with the frequency of that than you, because
Yes.
again, this is, I can tell you the difference between a cry that's I'm hungry, a cry that's I'm testing the waters to see what's going on here and just gonna let out a little noise and see what happens versus I'm hungry versus like a legitimate distressed cry. Like there is a difference. And so I know that there are parents out there, again, reading into this colic thing. Like I know I've heard people talk about, I have not taken care of a ton of colicky babies. That might change now that we're considering that it might be migraine in babies. But there's a difference in that child. And when you can tell that child is distressed constantly and you can't figure out what it is going on, it's like, we've got to do something. And when you, like Alex is talking about, you feel that, you know, that there's just this inherent thing and you've gone to doctor after doctor and they're like, oh, well, it's okay. They'll grow out of it. They'll be like, there's, that is doing you such a disservice to just pass it along until hopefully like it just gets better magically. Because in some of my research on colic, it was like, it's an issue that sort of, you know, figures itself out and then you're good. And I'm like, but does it? Like, is that potentially a really early, like, I'm going to start asking that question, especially if I have a parent or somebody that's there with them of like, do you remember if they had colic when they were a baby? Like, was that something that was super normal for them? Because even then that could potentially tell us that this was an issue even from birth now that we knew that there was a problem going on.
Yeah, hey, like 100%. When we're working with new clients and like part of what I do is paint what I call a stress timeline. And issues don't arise out of nowhere. We don't just like the only way it would arise out of nowhere is if we had like some sort of like car accident or injury or super stressful event and then afterwards everything was different.
Yep.
You know, there's like a very clear before and after. But in these situations where it's like no, you know, like my periods have always been irregular and I dealt with depression in high school and now, you know, I've been on this and that helped, but I didn't want to be on it anymore. And now I have these headaches and I just chronically have like this neck pain and some
Hmm.
tingling and, you know, all this sort of stuff. Like when we have these chronic issues, these don't arise out of nowhere. There's been issues going on in our body for a long period of time. And in situations, especially with kids, like if you know you were a sensitive kid, if you know you were diagnosed with some sort of ADD, ADHD, you dealt with a lot of the kids I take care of, there's a rigidity, like an inflexibility. Like if you change the plan, there's going to be a meltdown.
Hmm.
Like you know they because there's high anxiety there. There's lot of sensory issues, like they can't wear tags in their clothes, or they don't like socks or shoes, or
Yep.
certain textures of food.
Well, even
Um,
rigidity to them, like rigidity within their body. Like I remember talking about that, like
High
your, yeah,
tone.
like your baby, like
Mhm.
you should have the ability of like, doesn't
A
mean they
baby
just
should
like,
kinda be like
yeah.
a noodle though, so
Uh-huh.
if there's, like, really tense, you know, tension, yeah, that's something to pay attention to.
If you notice a baby's, again, one of the other things, if you notice a baby's head is stuck and it's like turned like this, and you put them in their car seat and it's always like this, and you can't really get them to look the other way, it's like, that's not normal. I don't give a his
No.
shit who says like, oh, they'll grow out of it or eventually. It's like, is that really what
It's
you want though for them?
and it's not necessarily growing out of it, it just morphs into something else.
Yes, and
Like,
developmentally,
that's how the body keeps score,
the
and
yeah, the
developmentally,
body's
things are
gonna have
gonna
to do
keep
something to work around that now. We're now
Mhm.
doing something, and
Exactly.
it's like, and it's something again, part of like I'm eventually gonna have to go find a doc that takes care of more kids because I think that's what starts to create the changes that we're trying to look for. And the change that we want is just like, hey, if we had the ability to catch this from a very, very, very early on age, how developmentally could that potentially change that child's life? Like, I don't
Uh-huh,
think that migraine
absolutely.
is necessarily genetic. There are things that I think make you more genetically predisposed,
Predisposed,
but you have the
yeah.
ability to essentially control those levers through development. That we've learned that that's pretty much now a better understanding of like we may have these, but the expression of those genes, we can change that. But I have two baby girls in my house whose mom used to have migraine. And so for me, I'm like, there is the potential of that. So we're going to do all the things that we can to make sure that that doesn't become an issue for them because I know what that looks like. I've worked with too many people and seen what their life looks like whenever that's what happens to them developmentally at a young age
Yeah.
and how that gets in your heads with interactions with other people, with being able to be a part of activities, with being able to, you know, really study hard or go to school or whatever it is that you want to be able to do, and how that starts to get in the way and how people think you're lying and you're just in pain. Like I can remember a girl I went to school with now, Kelsey. I wish this could find her. Literally, I remember her and she for us, it's like we didn't understand. It was like she was never at school and she had this weird sickness and nobody could really figure it out. And it's like, well, it doesn't look like there's anything
Mhm.
wrong with her. And it's like now knowing what I know, I'm like, there 1000% was.
Yeah.
Again, they just didn't know what to do with it. It's the unfortunateness of, we have to we got to figure out where the puck is going and not be going over here dicking around, because I sort of feel like that's what we're doing. Like there are very small sub genres of health that are doing amazing things. Like I know we've talked about it multiple times that, um, uh, God, that Tony Robbins book that I've been reading,
Mm. I don't remember its title.
I'm totally spacing, but I know it's on my phone here, but it's, he's literally talking about the fact that like the attrition rate of a medical degree is like 2 to 4 years. Like within 2 to 4 years, like all that information is now like that's changed. We've learned new information. We're going here based on technology or whatever it is that we're at. Like life force is what the book is called. Um, regenerative medicine is starting to really become a thing where they're doing crazy stuff for people that we didn't even ever think was possible. But now we're starting to figure out. And a lot of it, again, is really leaning on the fact that the body has an amazing ability to be able to heal itself. We need to figure out what it is, or even, maximize its potential to do that in a certain area. And then look what happens when we do that.
Part of me wants to be like, "Whoopee, the body can heal itself." Like, this is groundbreaking information. Like,
Right.
guys, come on. Like, of course the body can heal itself. I guess I love now that so much of quote unquote science is supporting these things that I feel like are very common sense, because it allows people to like grab hold of it. And I guess if we need like the data and the research to support that your body can heal itself,
Yep.
great. Okay, well it's coming out, we've got it. And I think the cool thing about being a parent is, armed with this knowledge, armed with all this research about the nervous system and neuroplasticity and stress and trauma and chronic illness, and how chronic illness is rooted in a overwhelmed, stressed out nervous system stuck in fight or flight, we get to choose how to support our baby's nervous systems.
Hmm.
We know, okay, if I parent in a fear-based way, then I'm going to keep my kids stuck in fight or flight, and they're going to be just dumped on with shame and fear and
Yeah.
embarrassment and humiliation, and they're never going to actually know how to emotionally regulate themselves, which is a huge way we stress out our nervous systems. Like we're literally like, everything has the potential to create trauma, right? Because stress is what creates trauma, but it's a person's ability to adapt that stress or not is what actually, causes the trauma. And
Yeah.
so if there's decisions we can make as parents, like, do we want to parent that way? Do we want to use these certain words and punishments and do things this way? Or do we want to have, you know, a more gentle parenting perspective, where the goal is connection and the goal is curiosity and the goal is to find out why, where are these behaviors coming from, looking at them as messengers versus something to punish or reward, because kids are not dogs, they're humans and they have personalities and temperaments, and they're constantly learning. They're just little sponges, walking nervous systems, taking in all this information, and they don't do what they're told, they do as you do. They learn by modeling and by play. And so if we don't have a hold on ourselves, if we're not doing our own work to support our own nervous systems, all of that's going to flood onto our kids. And we wonder why these generations, our new generations are so unhealthy. I can tell you it's because most of us have not done a good job of learning how to self-regulate our own systems, our own nervous systems. We don't do the things that support our healing. And we're often raised by, exactly like Brandon was talking about, I just don't want to be my dad.
Hmm.
But without a lens on who do you want to be, how can I model, what do I want to teach, then all of that stuff falls by the wayside, and we end up we're defaulting to these old patterns and old ways of being, these subconscious ways of being that we don't even know that we're doing.
Well, because it's what we always go back to and talk about. It's unsexy and it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for me to get into my feelings because I've never been taught or shown or mimicked how I would do that. Like
Absolutely.
I will not grow up in a house where my children are like, "I never saw my dad cry." That
Mhm.
just won't
Or
be the
or
case.
my I never for me, like, I'm the firstborn, right? And so I know I have already accepted my kid's gonna need to go to therapy,
Hey, me too.
uh, because because I'm not perfect and I'm not gonna get it right. There's gonna be things that I do that I think I'm doing okay, and she's gonna grow up and be like, "Mom, you really fucked me up, in this way." And I'm gonna
But
be
I'm
like,
also
"Well,
gonna make that
I'm
okay at a young
I
age.
exactly. I want my kid to know that I'm not perfect, and therefore here's my one of my biggest things that I wanna do for my kid is apologize to her
Yep.
when I know that I mess up,
That
because
has
that's
been
not
one of the most
something I
powerful
was ever
experiences.
given.
Yep.
Like,
I
I
can
I
remember
yeah.
times with my parents apologizing to me. Those are like very strong moments that I can remember of just them,
Yeah.
their willingness. Again, I think it's just something like the way that you view a parent for them to do that. You're like, oh, wow. Like there's a, I don't know, there's just something about that that it's like, oh, that stuff sticks out and it's big. And
Mhm.
I think what you're talking about is perfect because that makes you human. Like I
Yeah.
think you have to realize this to someone that looks up to you, like you're not human. You can pick up a building and run and do all like I don't know how my mom or my dad or whoever does this, but to them, you're amazing. You can do everything. And as you get a little bit older, like your awareness of how that's not true shatters a little bit, or you can have a bigger
Mhm.
moment when you're me as an adult and you're like, wait, my parents aren't perfect. Their life is not perfect. Things are not ideal and
Yeah.
absolutely perfect for them. Oh shit. And then that can wreck your world. And so
Yeah.
you have to have the ability of like, oh, I have to
Yeah.
learn how to exactly what you talked about, regulate that and understand.
We have to reparent ourselves. And it's like it's your inner child. And like anytime Clay and I get in a fight, like I know we've done a lot of work because I do see a lot of kids in practice. We do have ways to measure their function of their nervous system. So like just like we do this for Brandon's migraine patients and adults we take care of with chronic illness, I can also do this with babies. Um, Huge neurodevelopmental disordered population of patients that I love taking care of kids.
Can you give them some examples of like when you say neurodevelopmental? Because again, when you're in that space, you probably know a little bit more. So maybe she's making that make sense. But like, give them like some specifics, which I know we've probably already touched on in an episode. But like, when you say neurodevelopmental, like relate that to potentially their kids for someone who's listening.
So neurodevelopmental disorders, huge umbrella term. All things that would fall under that would be a whole what I call alphabet soup, which is just like OCD, ADHD, ASD for autism spectrum disorder, SPD, sensory processing disorder, everything from dyslexia to dysgraphia, if you're seeing an occupational therapist or speech therapist, all these sorts of things.
Dysautonomia is another one, by the way, which we could probably have a whole episode on.
Yeah, more adults come in with dysautonomia, but it could just because it's not diagnosed in kids, but, like, failure to thrive. Like,
Hmm.
I would say that would fall under, like, dysautonomia, where the child's just, like, completely not functioning,
Hmm.
but also, colic, like, we were talking about colic, that's a big one. Um, Constipation, digestive issues, ear infections, just chronic stuff. Chronic
Right.
stuff going on with the nervous system where we know our kids are struggling. They're struggling in their lives. Not that my goal, like if a child is diagnosed with autism, my goal is not to get rid of the autism. My goal is just to figure out if the brain and body are communicating as effectively as they possibly
Hmm.
can be. And if they're not, let's remove that interference and then let's watch and see if we can uh, help the child just have more fun. Maybe they get to go to a birthday party, maybe they get to join a sports team, maybe they get to sit in their desk,
Well,
if like that's a goal.
what gets them to
Um,
their optimal and maximum expression for them, whatever that is. Like
exactly,
everyone's is
exactly.
100% different.
Yeah,
And we have friends who deal with stuff like this. It's like it's not to make them, oh, they're nonverbal and hey, through this we're gonna make them verbal. That's not what I'm trying to do. I
mm-mm,
unfortunately have no control over that. But if there's an issue disconnecting the brain from the body and that is affecting their nervous system and affecting them neurologically, that's then where we can come in and help make a change and help create,
yep,
optimal for them, whatever that looks
mhm,
like. That's part of why I love what we do. There is no ideal, there's optimal for you. That's what we're
yep,
hoping we can always achieve every time.
and because we do the functional nervous system testing, we get to measure and track that the whole way through. Um,
So basically, I want to do some more research and we might do another episode on this. But it's like, the conclusion of one of these articles, which again, we can link or I can get to Garrett if we need to put it in there if you guys want to see that. I know sometimes people want to see that. Just if you Google colic in babies, is colic migraine, like there's a ton of stuff that comes up. But literally the conclusion of one of these studies that I read is like there is a probable relation between colic and migraine. Therefore, migraine and colic as a two-pain syndrome may have common pathophysiology. All that means is basically how they're expressed throughout your body, the disease process for those, there is a link. And so for me, as I know in adults, that there is obviously a regulation issue within the nervous system. There's something neurologically going on with the brainstem, with your nervous system, just that communication and a lot of other things that affects. It's like if it's doing the same thing in children, then we need to make sure that those babies are getting checked out. We need to make sure that it's at least something that is looked at, because again, that changes everything in that household. When a baby's not doing well and when there's something going on, it's like that affects everything. That's going to affect you and the entire
Oh, yeah.
family. And so we say that because it's like there's options. We can help. Like I feel like sometimes we
Well,
skirt
quick
over that.
I know, yeah, we do because we like to tell stories and then we forget, like, we set, like, this
This is
nice
what
dinner
we
meal, but
do.
we, like,
Yes.
forget to invite them to dinner. This is absolutely what we do. I would love to invite you to dinner. If you're dealing with these issues, we can check the function and see if you're a candidate for this type of nervous system care,
And if you're not
and
local,
what
we
that
can
would
help
look like.
find you someone. Like that's the
Oh,
whole
absolutely. We've got
purpose
a
of any
huge
of this.
network,
Yes.
and don't just, like, go Google. Like, please reach out to us, youcrackmeuppodcast.com, fill out the contact form. We will help you.
Yeah, let's not fall
Um,
for the SEO stuff. Let's fall for like who we actually know actually does
yeah,
this stuff,
I love
not
that.
who paid the most money in order to get
Right.
that.
Um, I was gonna say there was quick story, like, I love this one specific story just because it paints a really easy picture. I had a 4-year-old come in for constipation, and yeah, he was just about 4. He was around 4. 4-year-old come in for constipation. I adjusted him, figured out, right, there was a nervous system
I was about to say
interference there,
this is after all the
nervous system
exam stuff, by
issues.
the way, guys.
Yeah,
Yes,
all
there's
the exam stuff. So we're checking out his function, doing all my testing, all my developmental stuff. Um, he gets adjusted. According to my measurements, that adjustment did not go as well as I would have liked. And the adjustment, by the way, it's gentle. It's like
it's almost
as much
nothing for
pressure
yeah.
as you would put on a tomato.
Like
Like
checking
it's
to see if it's ripe.
yeah, yes, like that's what that is. And so according to my measurements, so I check before and after, I would do an adjustment to see if what we changed within the nervous system. And after that first adjustment, there really was not a whole lot of change, which is okay. Sometimes that happens. And that's why, we have follow up, come back. Let's see what changed and what didn't change. Well, after that first adjustment, even though there was not a whole lot of change in his nervous system, he was going poop every day. So like the constipation was taken care of, even though that my measurements didn't really change like I would have hoped. And so he comes in for a few more visits. He's still doing really well, like gut issues and all of that sort of stuff. So right now it's just follow up care. I adjust him again in a different way based on my testing
Assessment. Yep.
assessment. And his nervous system responded 180 completely cleared out the interference. And I was like, okay, awesome, great. This is exactly what I would have hoped would have happened. And the next visit, his parents came in. This patient was also a toe walker.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't walk flat footed. He would only walk on his toes.
Mm-hmm.
And he really had a pretty limited vocabulary. And the next visit, he was walking on his feet, which was his parents were telling, because he had to wear braces. They had him in braces.
Uh-huh.
And so he wasn't having to wear his braces. And they told me his language had just exploded. He was putting sentences together.
Because it was in there. He couldn't express it.
Exactly. Because there was that nervous system chaos, that nervous system interference that was keeping his brain and his body from actually connecting and talking to one another. So once that interference was removed, his brain they were able to talk. it was able
Mhm.
to spend energy on expressing and getting things out. So that affected not only his body function, but his brain function and his verbal capacity to talk. And I and that was so they came in for constipation
Mhm.
and that was removed very easily. It's almost like pain, right? Like people come in for pain and pain's pretty easy for us to get rid of. But it's almost like, but what's the maximum, like what's the optimal function we can get and what would that look like for your life? Well, I love this family because they were coming in, they knew what they were coming in for. They were coming in as support. Their whole family was being seen to take care of their nervous system. So they didn't stop once the constipation went away because they were there for the right reasons. And once we remove that interference, and all of a sudden this patient's talking and he's walking flat footed and he's doing so much better
Yep.
in those areas. And that wasn't even a goal. Like there's just the sky's the limit when we're looking at when we're able to measure the function of the nervous system, we're able to monitor how well it's working, and if I'm doing my job, watching the patient's body do its job, we can really create a whole new world. That's what I was gonna
Exactly.
say.
Yeah. I love it. And
We just watched Aladdin for the first time. So
and again, it's funny because you probably say this too. Like anytime somebody brings in a kid or a baby to me, especially a baby, uh, again, anyone who comes in, I tell you typically what you can expect as you're starting to go through care, what you can expect out of this visit, what things you might experience. That way you're not scared if something happens. Like, hey, by the way, you're
mhm,
going to be super tired. You may also have a really bad flare up immediately after this. That's okay. I know and
mhm,
expect that that can happen. When parents come in and they bring their kids in, I'm like, hey, just so you know, at some point in the next like, you know, 12-ish hours, probably way earlier than that, they're probably going to have a blowout diaper. Just be prepared and know that. And I
mhm,
always get the text and they're like, you weren't kidding. By the time we got home, the blowout had already happened. I'm like, yeah, because we're literally restoring that parasympathetic sympathetic function. Like most of the time it's either an external, like something that you're taking in that's affecting, that's causing that, which you've probably already rolled out because you researched it and you're like, maybe it's their formula, maybe it's this. And then when there's something
mhm,
and you're like, we've tried all those things, it's not happening. It's like, well, then it's an internal issue. It's something that's going on between that parasympathetic, sympathetic tone of the nervous system. It's not
mhm,
communicating that we can affect immediately and bam, you're like, oh, it's almost immediate. And again, it happens with my own kids. I literally will warn my wife.
mhm.
I'm like, hey, just be ready. You know what's going to happen. She's like, I know. And then I come home. It's like, yep, that's exactly what happened. It's
Yeah.
exactly what we expect. It's part of, we share these stories and like even we're guilty sometimes of like listen to these miracle stories and it's like I always try to put myself in like it's not a miracle story in our office because we expect that thing to happen. That is exactly like our coach is always on us. What did you expect to happen? Did you expect their ear was going to fall off when you did that? It's like no, that's not what happens when we remove the interference within the system, within whatever's disconnecting it. Of course, that's going to get better. That's exactly what we expect to have happen. So, um, and we might have to literally
Mhm,
like clip a little piece of that and like put it in the beginning because I feel like that was really good. And I know again, it's part of why we want to have these conversations and talk about this and like get feedback from you guys of like what episodes and what stuff do you want to hear us talk about. And again, the underlying thing is always going to be nervous system focused because that's exactly what we do. So if we've worn
mhm.
you out on that, you're probably not going to like this podcast because it's going to keep happening over and
Yeah.
over and over again in every
'Cause
episode.
y'all, that's the secret sauce to a long, healthy, happy life is the function of your nervous system. How well is it able to adapt? How well is that sympathetic, parasympathetic response able to talk to one another,
Mhm.
so that you can continue to function as best as you were designed, so you can heal from the inside out.
Exactly. Boom.
Mhm.
Landed the plane. So, as always, thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of You Crack Me Up. Please leave us your reviews, leave us a rating, like and subscribe on all the podcast things and do all the stuff. Because we want your feedback. We want to know that you guys are enjoying these episodes.
And of course,
Um,
share this one if it resonated with you, if you
yes.
know parents, if you know a mom that has mom guilt and just needs to hear that she is doing a great job, please share this with her because you're doing a great job.
Yes. And also know we are going to start doing some live episodes that we will be broadcasting through our YouTube. So make sure you guys go find that. It's under my
What's our
YouTube.
YouTube?
The Migraine Doc is the
There you go.
page. You can go find that and subscribe. We will make sure all that's linked in the description of all this stuff. So you can make sure that you get that there. And make sure you're on those because I think those will be very special. We'll be able to interact and answer
You
questions that you
can
guys
ask
have.
us live
Yep.
questions on
And
the
nothing gets
spot.
better than that. I mean,
Yep.
it was a while ago. It was like 2 or 3 like recording sessions ago. We literally went on my TikTok and went live. And we had so many questions there. And I think it just, again, I think it'll change your perspective and you'll see where we're trying to come from and why we want to help. So again, thank you guys very, very much. We really appreciate it. And we will see you on the next episode.